morning, rockers. This morning I'm going to show you a project of mine. It's the Ambos, the Anvil that was donated to me by my brother-in-law. As you can see, it's pretty rusty and in pretty bad condition. So I'm going to strip off all the paint, sand it back, put on some primer, put on a top coat, and by the time we're finished, this anvil should look as good as new. I'm going to save off from polishing the top of the anvil. I'm going to keep that for when I'm actually going to start using it, and that might be at least 6 months from now, because we're about to hit winter time here, and I won't be doing this out in the snow. There's a couple of essential items you might need here. In German, Abbeiser means paint stripper. It was a pretty easy thing just to go on the phone, check out what the English translation or the German translation of paint stripper is. And this stuff comes in a gel, costs about $10, and this will probably last ages. You have to wear gloves. It's absolutely poisonous. And you have to do this outside because it really smells like a mix between nail polish remover, kerosene, and just sort of jet fuel, I guess. And that's why you have to do it outside. I will try to take a couple of angle shots so you can see the reaction, and use an old brush, one that you're not too attached to. Check out the consistency. Oops. Look at this stuff. It's like Ghostbuster slime. The gel form is better though because it sits on your job and it doesn't pour off. It certainly doesn't run down or anything. It really stays put once you put it on. Alright, I'm not sure how much I'm going to need. And I always think it's better to put a little too little in here rather than too much. And also because this stuff stinks to high heaven, I'll use the smallest amount possible. Try to get a close-up on some of this. It's quite, I don't know if you can see it all right, but it's quite a rusty old piece. And the paint's already peeling up. It's probably quite a few years old. Okay. I put it on fairly liberally, of course, because you don't want to leave any gaps. There's a bit dirty, a bit crusty, but there's no point getting in there until this paint comes off. So really stinks. Really poisonous, really, I imagine. Whew. I would recommend wearing a mask. I just don't have one, so I'm doing this outdoors. Should start seeing results fairly soon. kind of like wallpaper glue, the consistency. It does a good job when it's thick, and it doesn't do such a good job when it's thin. The paint is starting to peel up a bit now. I'm just going to empty what I've got left in the jar. There's not much, but I'm just going to sort of cake it on where it looks like it needs it. But at this point I should just kind of leave it and let it set. I shouldn't say set, activate is the right word. The paint should start peeling off pretty quickly. It's coming off on the brush a little, and pretty soon you should start seeing bubbles and wrinkles. I'll leave that there for a while.
Face mask?
Do we have one?
Yeah.
Alright, because this iron is so heavy and this paint is so old, I'm going to put another layer of paint stripper onto this, and I'm going to use a little face mask because it's quite overwhelming. Thanks, honey. Okay, this should be more manageable. This should be more manageable with a face mask. I've got my jar. I've got my paint stripper. I'm going to fill her up again, away from my face. So I'm going to recoat it. I don't know if you can really see what's going on. I'll try to get a good angle on it. Might be in the dark. Still, I'm putting on a second coat of the gel. Be sure to get every little nook and cranny. You can even rub a little around that hole. It doesn't matter what the consistency is as long as it's thick, and then it'll be more active. You can see how thick it is. Every nook and cranny, every little bit. Ugh. You can see the paint coming off pretty easy now. Okay, looks like that's about it. The paint is definitely oozing off, sloughing off at this point. Can you see that? Ugh. Really just like slime. Oh look, Now I can see the undercoat. So it's just coming off with the brush. Ugh. It's really sloughing off. The undercoat is starting to come through, and the once solid coat of black is now basically just turning back into paint. Oh, there's a lot. Check it out. That's paint. All of it's coming off. I'm only doing it softly at this point. I will be using a spatula to scrape off the paint soon, but it's still active at the moment. Wow, you can really see the paint coming off. Alright, I tried to get a better angle so you can see underneath the thick grime and paint that has started to peel off and bubble off. It kind of looks a bit like a wax work. You know, the paint really becomes 3D and doesn't really want to adhere to the surface anymore. Underneath it, I think I can see a red undercoat. The undercoat is not a problem. I'm sure also that if I sand down that undercoat a little bit and put a bit more on top, fresh, it might not be that difficult just to repaint over the original undercoat with a little bit of sanding. I hope you can see the amount of paint that's really coming off. It's quite spectacular. Again, the toxicity of this procedure cannot be understated. It's quite a dangerous thing to do, and I wouldn't do it indoors, and I wouldn't do it near an open flame or near a cigarette smoker. And when I'm done, I'm going to have to clean all this up, and then I can actually wash this away with water, while some of the faster working paint strippers, you can only really wash them away with acetone. So pay attention to what's written on the bottle, and for mine at least, I can wash everything up, including the brush, with water. So take those precautions. Now I'm going to slough off the last of the paint. Let's see what that looks like. Wow, that's effective. Hmm. Check all that out. It's a whole layer of paint. Not sure if you can see it okay, but I'm going to paint over this. Just sort of brush over it to get rid of what paint is left. Alright, at this stage I've rubbed off basically all of the thick parts of paint, and now it's time to apply. I hope you can see it alright. Now it's time to apply the old spatula. Alright, I've scratched off everything with the spatula. Underneath there's a red iron oxide undercoat. I also noticed after scratching off the paint that the actual design of the anvil is not smooth. It's a pretty rough design, and therefore I can't really get in all the corners and nooks and crannies properly to clean everything out. So I'm going to get the gurney gun and blast this thing with very high pressure water. But before I do that, I'm going to give it one more blast of the paint stripper. Not a thick one this time, just a basic thin one. I've already pulled all the paint off. I've already scratched off all the big bits. This is just to do a finer sort of in the nooks and crannies. I'm going to stick this stuff so that in the end it really will be clean after I blast it with the water. Alright, so I have to hit this one more time. I'm putting a lot here because this is one section that's very hard to scratch, very hard to clean.
I'll be happy when this is finished. And I think it's finished. Yeah. Getting it everywhere, but it's done. Alright, I'll come back in 20 minutes, maybe half an hour, and the final bit of the paint, or maybe most of that undercoat, should come. If it doesn't come off, that's okay. I'm going to scratch it all off with some sandpaper after I blast it with some high-powered water. But again, now I just have to do the weighting. I'm going to come back after a coffee and I'll show you what it looks like. Also, the sun is coming up, so the look of it and the light of it might be different. I can't do anything about it because it's so bloody heavy. It just has to stay put. So hopefully the sun and the glare doesn't affect the rest of the video. But I still plan to show you how I clean it, prepare it with primer, how I sand it before that, and at the end how I give it the final coat with the overcoat, which will be a very bright kind of canary yellow. Alright, so I've let the last, the third and final coat of paint stripper on there for about 20 minutes, half an hour. And I guess I'll peel the last of it off with a brush. This strange knot here that I thought was actually paint turns out to be just a bad forge job.
going to give it the once over with the little kitchen scourer. Hopefully loosen up the last of what's left of that rust. So the anvil is now dry. You can see the finish on it is quite different. The black is all gone. You can see kind of rust and whatnot, but that's okay. It's actually just scratched off, and it's already been brushed a bunch of times and went over it with the scourer. So there is no paint on it whatsoever. But what I did notice is there's kind of a fault line here along the anvil. As I said before, it's not perfectly made. I'm sure it was sort of tried to be set in one piece, but it almost looks as if there are two pieces that join this anvil together. Yeah, you can see that crack right there. But the anvil itself is still quite solid. You know, it's going to take a lot to break something like this. And anyway, I'm just hitting it on the opposite end with a hammer, so it's not going to break it in half or anything. But you can kind of see how it almost looks like it was made or forged in two separate pieces, and the second piece didn't quite sort of forge in properly. There's some kind of label on here. It's upside down, but it looks like it says Ein. I don't know what the last part is. It's German, of course. It's from Germany. Up here there's some sort of number punched in, and it probably was how many kilograms this anvil weighs. I have no idea because I can't see the other numbers. I just see a 0. Yeah, so I don't know, I'll figure out what that one means. The rest of the anvil's still pretty cool. You know, once it's painted, primed, you're not going to see this big crack or this fault line anymore. But still, it's a big surprise because I did not see that when I was using it. Alright, this is going to be a full transformation by the time it's finished. Right now you see a stripped down anvil. By the time I'm done, it's going to look pretty cool. As you can see here, I'm just using again German products, but metalworking, Grundierung, grounding, which basically just means, you know, the basis. And it's extremely strong. It's made especially for metal. It was, I think, almost €10 for this one. And the rest of the paint I ordered online on eBay, and I bought, I think, 4 cans of yellow paint. There were 400 milliliters each, and it cost €20 altogether. So about $5 each. But this base coat, this primer, cost about €10 alone. I'm going to shake the hell out of it. They come with a little safety cap. You need a screwdriver to get it off. I guess that's so kids don't get a hold of it, or so that people aren't testing it in the shop. Okay, just an old school round nozzle. It's a little breezy. So I'll just give it a light coat to begin with. And I absolutely do not need to paint the top of the anvil because I'll be sanding it down to bare metal later on. Yep, the wind isn't helping. Don't let it bunch up anywhere. So keep it light. By stopping and starting every time you make a stroke, you actually save paint.
and it also prevents runs. Because this part here was so horrible, I'm putting extra. Just to sort of seal up the cracks. I'm also painting the frame, as this is going to be painted to protect it. Alright, so it's been, the paint has been stripped, the body has been scratched up with a wire brush and a scrubber. I've put on the primer, and now that the primer has dried, I even tried to use the primer, I know, to kind of fill in some cracks, because you could really, it was really clear that this anvil was made of two separate parts. I guess the top and the bottom were made separately and then somehow welded together, or maybe they're both still hot and then pressed together. You can see some hammers have hit it and stuff, but you know, the finished job is pretty ugly. So I just sprayed a bit of extra primer in there to kind of fill it in, and it kind of did fill the gaps in alright. Now I've got the colour. This is going to be the yellow on the outside. It's a matte yellow. I don't think it makes a difference if you use matte or if you use gloss. I guess that the gloss paint, maybe the water beads off easier, but this is not going to be in a place where there's any water. It's kind of cool, you can see the stamp on the side of the anvil now, but I've got to shake the hell out of this, put my trusty spray mask on, and then I'm going to get started on painting this thing. I think it's probably realistic that I would be able to paint this whole thing with one can, 400 grams.
Good coverage. Doesn't smell nearly as bad as the other paint.
That's that side done. This yellow is a little more pale than I expected. I thought it would be a bit more orange. putting a little extra paint where it's very rough. Okay. The name of the colour, Daybreak Yellow. I guess so. Maybe it has a little green in it. It's not really a safety yellow, but it's a decent cheap paint. Just about there. Alright, I've let that dry. It's been a couple of hours. I didn't need that long to let it dry, but I thought... I kind of put a thicker layer on this time, but definitely there's at least 3 layers of paint on there now. Do a pretty good job of sealing this thing up. So I should definitely start painting this box. Okay, here goes. Yeah, the wood's doing a pretty good job of soaking it up. I don't really care if it's see-through. I just want to seal it up so it doesn't get wet. I hope this first coat seals up the wood a little. I just want it to be solid yellow in the end, really. These circular nozzles suck. The flat nozzles are the best for painting wide surfaces. I'm on to my final can of paint. I might have underdone it. Maybe 6 cans would have made more sense. 4 might not do it. That's the problem with these yellows. Yellow paint tends to be like spraying on lemonade. So maybe I have to get some more paint after this. Yellow paints rarely are very solid. Let's use Krylon or stuff that's especially made a signal marker. You know, like line marking paint for the road. That's the stuff that's really solid. Alright, but yellow's a tricky colour. It's over. Well, I didn't quite get to finish what I started today. I guess the idea was that I would finish the anvil and then also finish the base of the anvil. But 4 cans of Daybreak Yellow are certainly not thick enough or cover well enough to complete the task. I'll need a few more cans of paint. So I probably will order some more paint. I will go for slightly yellower, slightly oranger yellow. And I'll go for that more safety yellow, like a school bus yellow, caution yellow. And I'll paint the anvil with 1 more coat. And I'll definitely give the base probably 2 more coats. Then I have to turn it over, spray the inside a little, and then spray the top as well, so everything's evenly covered and equally waterproof. So I have to stop the video, order some paint online, and then I'll make the second half of this video when I get the rest of the paint. So I hope you're patient enough to wait a week or maximum 2 weeks. Usually the stuff that I order gets here within about a week, but it's the weekend, so who knows. I might get it during the week and be able to finish the video for you. If not, still tune in and I'll have it done in the next week or so. Tune in here on YouTube. You get to see me finish this job that I started.